Good morning. I'm Peggy van de Plage. Thank you for being here today. So today we're going to talk about lobbying, what it is, but also why lobbying is actually a power play and not a dirty word. And lobbying is very, very important in the context of mastering influence. And it's so important for business leaders to understand politics because it's going to help their business tremendously. At the same time, I want to start with the idea that it is not one-sided. Influencing public policies, whether you're, a business, a trade organization, any type of, I would say, organization with some type of influence. Hopefully, the public policies will be influenced for the best of the society, the organizations, the client. So again, lobbying, sometimes people confuse it with corruption. Obviously, it is absolutely not. If you're a lobbyist, you're registered, so people know what's happening. You're not allowed to give gifts. So it is really the business of influence, helping companies navigate the government in order to have I would say policies that are really supportive of the industry and that can be create new jobs, that can be have for example, tax structure that will be supportive to new investments. So I want to start with that because again, lobbying can be seen as a dirty business, but it is not necessarily the case. Like any business, it can be good, it can be bad. It depends on the intent, it depends on the actors. So I want to talk about lobbying because I went to a super interesting presentation actually by Dr. Ken Chan. So Dr. Ken Chan is a partner at a company called Optimus SBR here in Toronto or Canada, I should say. And he was in public service for quite some time in Canada, in the UK, at the provincial and at the federal level. So he has an extensive experience, which was very interesting. He received a PhD from ESCP, a French school. So obviously I connect with that, even if I have not studied at ESCP, but I am actually looking into this idea of having a doctorate. That's another story. And so he came to this organization of French people from business and engineer schools to discuss about business and politics, insights for leaders. That was the name of his presentation. And again, if you think that politics is just about governance, you really need to think again. Politics is actually marketing. It's about branding, positioning, influence. And in today's world, if you're running a business, navigating politics isn't optional. It is a survival skill. And I guess what you're seeing right now that is really, really pushed forward by the Trump administration and all these changes, the tariff, like the influence with outside countries and allies or not allies, you really understand that you, as a business owner, as an executive, as an entrepreneur, you cannot stay in the sideline. So this event really, I mean, that was very interesting for most of us because it really show, the realities of corporate lobbying and why actually even governments themselves hire lobbyists. And I would say the key takeaway for me from that event was if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And no one really likes to be on the menu. I don't really like to be on the menu. I like better to be the one ordering, actually. So, lobbying is actually a legitimate business strategy. As I mentioned, lobbying is not a shadowy backroom deal. It's a structured, strategic process that connects businesses with policymakers. So done right, it really contributes positively to both business performance and public policy. So I have a few numbers that was shared by Dr. Chan that I want to share with you. So in 2023, 4 billion USD were spent on lobbying in the US alone. In the EU, the European Union, you have 12,000 lobbyists that are registered because they need to be registered. In Canada, you have 7,000 lobbyists, so that's quite a bit when you compare to the EU. So corporations that engage in lobbying see tangible business advantages. So whether it's reduced risks, whether it's competitive edges, whether it's just a seat at the policy making table, these are very tangible results that businesses, corporations get by being involved in lobbying. So why as a business you need to master the political landscape? So and that's one thing again the event made crystal clear is that businesses and politics are deeply intertwined. No matter you like it or not, no matter you think it should or shouldn't be the case, it is the reality, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So whether you're a multinational or you're a startup, you need to understand and leverage government relations. And there are a few reasons for that. The first is navigation of regulation. So government creates the rule of the game. So if you're a smart player, well, you want to shape those rules. You know, you don't necessarily want to be an order taker. You want to be an order shaper, if I can say that. Second is that it's nice. It's a nice, I would say, strategy to align with government priorities, and whether it's, I mentioned job creation. I mentioned obviously now a lot regarding. I won't call it protectionism, but your own country first kind of type of mindset. But if your business goals and policy trends don't align between what the governance, the government in power is looking to do and what you're looking to do, you're already behind. So you really need to understand what is it important for this government right now and align as well your agenda with that, to accentuate your chance of success. And the third reasons why it's important to understand and leverage government relations is risk mitigation. So policy shifts can make or break industries overnight. And we're seeing that, again, with the tariff as an example, or, buy American type of regulations, because it impacts a lot of industries outside of the US. So you want to engage early to reduce exposure to sudden regulatory risks. So again, I want to talk about the Trump effect, and because there are a lot of things that the Trump administration is really changing the rules of the game, let's put it that way. And it was a bit difficult, to be honest, to be on the front foot, because even if, to be fair to this administration, everything they're doing, they had mentioned them in their Project 2025, in their campaign. I don't think anyone expected that pace of executive orders, but also that depth. So that makes it a bit difficult for lobbying. And I was asking actually Dr. Chen that question after the event. I was like, okay, what is the new reality under the Trump administration? Because it seemed to me that old rules don't apply. And he was like, well, the traditional lobbying playbook have been thrown into chaos now with the Trump era. So there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of all lobbying is going to be done is being done today, because there is a lot of unknown. So it's one thing as well you need to keep in mind, is that maybe the old rule of lobbying will soon not apply anymore, simply because that administration is not playing by the old rules, and there is a massive contagion effect on the rest of the world, as we can see already, whether in Ukraine, Middle East, and every countries that were allies or not with the US, that they have on their radar right now. So what is the lobbying playbook that has been used, and was it played right? again, I think some principle will still apply. So we're going to talk about these principles, even if, again, we're still trying to understand what's going to be exactly the new way to do lobbying under this Trump era. So Dr. Chan did some research, obviously, to get his PhD. He had to do a thesis, a dissertation, and he had to do multiple research papers. So his talk and this presentation are based on his research. So he did more like a quantitative analysis, and it was based on 65 interviews of, leaders and policymakers. So to really show what is this playbook to effective lobbying. So the first learning was in-house versus outsourced lobbying. So companies with in-house government relations, and you see a lot of that in highly regulated organizations like financial services, so that can be banks, asset manager, insurance, pharmaceutical companies. So this organization that evolve in highly regulated environments of a certain size, obviously, always have their own government relations group. Nonetheless, they very often still hire external lobbyists. So you might wonder why, if you have a team internally, you would hire external lobbyists. Well, it's because the external experts provide multiple things. First, political intelligence, they're on the ground, they're listening, they have information. They also provide validation of a strategy that the company might want to push forward. And they give access to key networks. So that is the value for these large corporations, even if they have their own government relations staff inside, to work with external lobbyists. And actually, even governments, I mentioned that in the introduction, and that's something I didn't know, I thought was very interesting. They hire lobbyists to navigate their own bureaucracy. And that's sometimes because you want to deliver not so great news, maybe you're not happy with something, da 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 da. So you want to hire someone who might have already a relationship with that part of the bureaucracy that you want to, I don't know if it's necessarily push back, but maybe work with to change some of their strategy of their thought. So you can see that hiring outside lobbyists is a very important strategy. And if you have not done that for your own organization, maybe it's something that you should consider. The second part of this lobbying playbook is this idea of trade associations as a collective voice. So, that seems very obvious, but businesses will yield more influence when they advocate together. And if you can't lobby alone, join forces with an industry associations that can amplify your message. Again, that seems quite obvious, but that is a great way for you to have more leverage and to have a voice at the table. So these trade associations are actually very, very powerful and very beneficial for the different players of the industry. The third thing that is very important when you're doing lobbying is to understand how policymakers think. And we discuss a bit about the alignment that seems obvious with their political agenda. If you're coming with ideas that are totally antagonistic to why the politicians were elected for, or what is the mandate of the current government, well, it's not going to go great. But more than that, ministers, advisors prioritize a few things. First, ethical engagement. That seems obvious, but Dr. Chan was giving us some advice. He said, if you're going to have, a coffee, for example, and you're insisting on paying the coffee while this government official is not allowed to accept gift, you're putting everyone in a delicate situation. So you need to understand the rules and you need to respect them. So this ethical engagement can seem sometimes very small, but it is very important. You don't want people who are in a position of power to look like they are compromised because you're, bringing gifts or whatever. So that ethical part is very important. And it's funny. I lived that when I was on the board of Invest in Canada. When we changed CEO, I applied for the position, and I was in the short group to get the job, which I didn't get, but I was in the running. And when I was talking to my friends and, relationships saying that I was applying to that job, everyone was already positioning themselves to ask for favors. I'm not joking. And what's very interesting is that these are probably the same people who think, oh my God, politicians are corrupt and da da da. But they were the same one who were already telling me, oh, well, you're going to be able to help me with that. Oh, but yeah. And you're like, wow, that's exactly what is not what we want to do, So again, this ethical engagement is very important to understand that there is no small favor, there is no small thing, or you're my friend, I can ask you that, da, 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 da. No, that doesn't work that way. So it is very important as a lobbyist to understand that. The other thing is that you need to have a deep understanding of government processes. Again, I saw that as well when I was on the board of Invest in Canada, is that you hear everyone if you're having a coffee or a dinner with friends, and it's like, oh, well, and with obviously Musk, Doge, and the US, oh, let's cut people, simplify processes. These are not simple processes. You pull one string, the entire thing collapse, and it's way, way, way more complex than what you think. Is there opportunities for automation? That's for sure. Like at the CRA, things are still done with Excel spreadsheet. And I'm not even talking macro, I'm talking Excel spreadsheet. That there is room for automation. But this idea of, okay, let's simplify and cut everything, for me, just show the misunderstanding of how government processes work. So understanding that, super important as a lobbyist. And then again, I mentioned that you need solutions that align with the public interest. Like when we were at Invest in Canada, the goal was to attract foreign investments, which mean obviously job creation, good job created in Canada thanks to that, capital investments, so all of that are aligned with public interest. And that's something that's very important as a lobbyist to understand. So the first lesson on that point is really you need to build credibility. Political staffers remember who plays fair and who doesn't. So, it's always, I mean, it's sad to almost have to say that because it should be the by default behavior, but be polite with people, respect people. If they're not working for you, even if they're civil servants. This idea of I'm paying your salary, whatever, like this type of mindset is first, it's absolutely outrageously disrespectful, but on top of that, is not really gonna make you earn any points. Seems obvious, but still want to mention that. So Dr. Chan was a very fun and smart dude. So he was mentioning one of the best hiring tip in government relations. And it was funny. It's like, well, head to the bar. And what he meant by that is that you have a lot of young political staffer. It is very these jobs are tough. You work a lot, you don't make a lot of money, so you see a lot of younger people doing that in their career because, well, it's a great way to learn, and you might not have the same financial pressure that some adults or at least older adults have. So hiring former political staffer, especially young political staffer, is usually a smart move because they understand, the inner workings of policy making. They can be your best asset in navigating relations. And his joke was, well, where do you find them? Well, you find them in bars near government offices after a long day of work. So that's usually a good hunting ground to find your new hire if you're a lobbyist. Um, so to come back to lobbying, so lobbying is seen as what we call a non-market strategy. So the traditional competitive strategies focus on, pricing, branding, innovation, while non-market strategy refers to all businesses engage with governments, regulators, the public to shape the business environment. So lobbying is one of the most effective non-market strategies because it helps, again, businesses shape policies that directly impact their industry. So it is a very critical business lever. So what's my final thought from this presentation from Dr. Chan? It's really this idea that if you're not in the game, you're already losing. And lobbying is not just for Fortune 500 companies. It's a tool for any business that is serious about long-term success. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to hire your own firm, but again, you can join a trade association. And you know that we're in an era now of regulatory uncertainty, to say the least. There is huge interconnectivity globally, no matter what some countries are trying to do with protectionism, and you see more and more, and we're going to see more and more policy-driven market shifts. So staying politically savvy, it's not an option anymore. It's a business imperative. So if your business is not engaging with politics, it's really time for you to rethink your strategy, because whether you like it or not, politics is marketing. And the most powerful brands, they know how to play the game. So, that's a question I want to leave you with is, how is your business navigating the political landscape? What are you doing? And maybe the answer is nothing, or maybe it's very little. So the second question is, well, what are you planning on doing now after listening or reading about that? So thank you so much again for listening. Again, my name is Peggy van der Plas. You can learn more about me at peggyvanderplas.com, my website. And don't hesitate to reach out or comment if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, have a great day.